5 things foster children want most of all. My name is Genevieve Yanetta, and I'm excited to be with you today to share 5 things that I've seen foster kids that have been in my care and what they want most of all. We have been foster parents for going on 16 years. In January, we will have been licensed, and we've had a variety of children from preemie, drug-exposed infants, all the way to middle school children. And so I'm just going to share with you today from my personal experience and what I've seen as a foster parent. This list, of course, is not exhaustive. There's so many things that foster kids want, and each child is so unique in what they want and what they feel like they need as a own individual person. And I encourage you, as you watch this list, find a foster child, whether it's yours or whether it's maybe a relative that has a foster child in their home. Maybe it's a foster child that is in your classroom and you're a teacher. I encourage you, ask them questions, inquire what are some of the things that they would like most of all. At the end of this video, I'm going to share with you my final thoughts, so make sure to stick around. Also, make sure to subscribe for more videos like this. There will be a video that's entitled Some of the Things That Foster Kids Don't Like. And so if you want to see that video first, subscribe below, thumbs up, and make sure to ring that bell to get a notification of that coming video. Let's get started. Thing that foster kids want most of all is they want to be seen and they want to be heard. Imagine being a foster child coming into care for the very first time. There's new adults, there's new sights and smells, there's new kinds of food to eat. They maybe have a whole new wardrobe and new things to wear. They may have to go to a different school or meet new friends after they've just had to leave old friends that they worked so hard to establish. And if you've had any kind of significant change, maybe over the last year or year and a half, you understand just a portion of how a foster child might feel. Sadly, within the foster care system, foster children can sometimes lose their identity. They can not even know who they are, or maybe they have other people telling them what they are or what they should think or what they should feel. As a result, it is so important that foster children feel like they're seen and heard. They feel like there's someone who knows them and can connect with them. And maybe as the foster parent, you are in a position to be able to see and to know that child. Maybe as a teacher or a relative of a foster placement in a way that someone maybe who doesn't, who sees them at visits or sees them as they drive them back and forth and transports them, or comes to the home for an hour one time a month. And then imagine a foster child that finally adapts. They adapt to a new environment, to a new family. And it's so easy after a while, I think, for foster children to just be seen by others as a number, as a face, or as a name, but not to be really known, not to be really appreciated for who they individually are on the inside. So how do foster kids want to be seen, and what do they do when they're not seen? Some of the things that we see with foster kids that come into care when they don't feel seen or heard is they express their needs through behaviors. So I know when foster kids come into a home, a lot of times we can judge them by their behaviors. We can say, well, they're acting this way, or they're not responding this way, or they're retreating in this way. Often those behaviors that are extreme or out of the norm or not socially acceptable are a cry for them to be seen and to be known. And so if you have a child that you know that is a foster child that has big behaviors or big emotions, often they're trying to tell you something. They're trying to say, do you see me? Does anyone hear me? Does anyone know me? And so those are indicators that those children that are in care want more than anything to be seen and heard. The second thing that we have seen with foster kids coming into care that they want most of all is to be known. So it's one thing to be seen, to recognize that a person is in your home or a person has a place in a classroom or at a desk. It's another thing entirely to be known. And if you've ever experienced maybe working where you are just a number, or going to somewhere where you just feel like you are one of many, there's a big difference. And you can attest to individually having someone see you and hear you, but most of all, know you. So what are some of the ways that we can get to know these foster kids? One way that we can get to know foster kids, really know them, is to ask lots of questions. And there's a big difference between how was your day, where they respond good, fine. And a question was, what was the best part of your day? When we ask open-ended questions, our kids that are in care, they tend to open up. They tend to have to search the depths of really what they think and feel, and then they have to be vulnerable and willing to share those things with you. Another great way to make a foster child feel known is by sharing some of your experience, some of your thoughts and feelings. So you're not just a teacher or a foster parent or a social worker. You are someone who is emotionally invested in that child by sharing your story. And often what I find is, in return, foster kids also end up opening up. They want to be vulnerable. They want to share their story with you as well. So getting to know a foster child is more than just asking questions. It is also spending time with children. Sometimes foster kids get kind of used to sitting in a counseling office or in a social worker office or sitting at a visit, and big people, if you will drill them with questions. They will ask, how was your day? What did you do? How are you thinking? What are you feeling? And they get used to this and kind of can sometimes understand that adults in their lives, they just want something from them. But there's nothing really more valuable than taking the time to go on a long walk, or to go to the park, or just laughing and being with a foster child. Sometimes kids open up right away. They just pour out their hearts to people and they're really open and vulnerable. But sometimes there are other kids that it can take a long time. You can maybe walk for an hour with them, or go rollerblading with them, or on a bike ride. And it may be at the very end of that, or at the very end of the evening, after they've had a really fun day with you, that they begin to open up and share with you, because they know that you care and they know that you have invested in them. As we seek to try to get to know foster kids, we also have to understand that these kids often have layers upon layers upon layers, that they've had people that have betrayed them, people that have lied to them, people possibly that have hurt them in multiple different ways. And that can feel very scary. It can feel very scary to open up and be known. And so please, as you get to know foster kids, please be patient. Don't push too hard. Really let the situation unravel on its own. And if you spend lots of time, you open up yourself and you begin to ask questions, I guarantee that these kids will feel like they are known. And that is what they want most of all. The third thing that foster kids want most of all is they want unconditional love. Isn't that something we all really want? We want to be loved regardless of if we're good or if we're bad, if we make great choices that receive applause, or if we fail immensely, if we get an A on a test, or if we get a D- on a test. The way we behave is not conditional on the love that we receive. So if we as adults who've had a lifetime of experiences and opportunities to really get to know what true love is and fake love and genuine love is, and be able to discern those things, how much more important would it be for a child, especially a child that's been exposed to abuse or neglect, to be able to receive unconditional love? Unconditional love, it doesn't stonewall a child if they're not behaving the way that they should be behaving according to society. It doesn't reprimand or bring harsh punishments if a child makes a mistake or they do something even on purpose to catch a response. Unconditional love is tested, and it is true, and it is unchanging. Often foster kids have experienced love that changes or is not genuine, or maybe love that disappears. They've experienced abandonment and neglect and really hard things that they have to deal with on the inside and deal with emotionally. So when they experience unconditional love, and sometimes they might even test your love to see what kind of love it really is. When they experience that, the love that doesn't turn its back, that doesn't punish harshly and loves them exactly for who they are, that love is transformational. We have seen it over and over again in our home. We have seen the transformational love that restores kids and heals kids and encourages them to be exactly who they are. And it is a beautiful and a powerful thing. Unconditional love, it is one of the things that foster kids want most of all. The fourth thing that foster kids want most of all is they tend to generally, and again, this isn't everybody, but most of the foster kids that are in care that I've met, they want to feel normal. They don't want to feel like they're weird or strange or they're outcast or that they look different or act different. They generally do want to fit in. They don't want to rage. They don't want to have tantrums. They don't want to steal or lie or be a misfit or excluded from the crowd. And I found that often the older a foster child is, the more this is true. When they get to be middle school and high school students, they just want to be loved. They want to feel like they're normal and they are part of a group of people that love them and that accept them for who they are. I have seen so many times foster kids that have expressed that they don't want the social worker to come to their school and take them out of the class and maybe ask them questions. They don't want to have to go to counseling week after week after week so that they feel broken or they feel like they're messed up or there's something wrong with them because their bio parent maybe made choices that have harmed them. And regardless of maybe how good counseling may be for them, foster kids do tend to generally want to feel normal. We as foster parents have seen many situations to where a transporter will come to the school and remove the child during the class day for them to do visits with their biological parents. And while biological parent visits are good and they're necessary and they're required by the court and by the state, sometimes foster kids can feel awkward. They can feel like, what is wrong with me? All these other kids are going to go home on the bus or get picked up by a parent, and yet I have some strange transporter coming into my classroom or waiting outside for me that I need to go to a visit, endure emotional kind of trauma because they get set back in an environment that often they remember of abuse or neglect, and then they have to come back and are expected to be still and focus and learn. And so a lot of times it is so important to be so sensitive to foster kids because they want to feel normal most of all. Please, please, please don't go in public or with your friends or your family and introduce your bio kids and then maybe your adopted kids and then say, this is my foster son or daughter. I know that even legally, we aren't supposed to announce or segregate or separate foster kids from our own bio kids for the sake of privacy, at least in our state. However, even just for the benefit of that child, imagine if you're like, these are my real kids and here's my foster child. And that was you. Imagine how that would make you feel. I think a great bar for you as a foster parent or as a teacher, as a social worker, as you deal with foster kids, is to put yourself in their shoes. Imagine if that was you and you were in a setting. Would you feel normal? Would you feel accepted? Would you feel loved in that situation? That's a great determiner for how we might treat the kids that are in our care or how we have influence over. And the fifth thing that we feel and we have seen foster kids want most of all is permanency. We hear that word a lot as foster parents or people that are involved with the system. We hear that there's permanency with bio parents. There can be permanency when they get to be adopted. What does permanency look like for the child that's in your home? Permanency means that that child that doesn't have to go to a fifth school or move to another school district or have to meet a new family. Permanency sometimes looks like going back to a biological family, and there are situations where foster kids come into care and it doesn't matter if they have a father who is in prison for a violent crime. They want to be with that biological parent because in their mind there will be permanency. At the same time, permanency sometimes looks like adoption. it looks like that child doesn't have to move from your home again. So if you're a foster to adopted parent, that might be a great opportunity for some of the kids that come into your home that are not legally allowed to go back to their biological family to be able to have permanency, that they can stay where they are. Because how many of us love change? How many of us want to be moved? How many of us want to live a life where we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, or next week, or next year? Imagine a child, they don't know if they're going to be harmed or hurt, or if they're going to be in a home where they're never going to see their biological little brother or sister ever again. Imagine how that must be for a child. So above all, what we have seen is that foster kids want most of all is some sort of permanency, whether that's in a biological family or to be adopted in the foster family and the home that they're living in. And these are my final thoughts. There are so many things that foster kids want most of all. They want to be loved. They want to be accepted. They want a home. They want permanency. They want a family. They want to be seen as normal, as typical. They don't want to be different. They don't want to be pointed out. They don't want to be made to be a spectacle or to be held in the center and talked about. They don't want people talking about their problems. They definitely don't want people talking about their biological family in front of them or what happened to bring them into foster care. And although there are privacy laws that are meant to protect these children, I have seen it way too many times where foster parents will come and they will share the whole story of their foster child right in front of other people. They will exploit or expose the child and maybe a weakness or a behavior that they're having. They will talk about maybe what they did last week or what they stole or what they did wrong. But don't we all just want to be lifted up? Don't we all just want to be encouraged? Don't we want to have someone to point out what is good about us, what is beautiful? And so again, if you are in relationship with some kind of foster child, whether it's through an education system or in your own home, I encourage you to try to train your brain to find what is beautiful and good about this foster child. Encourage them that eventually they will have some sort of permanency and that they are safe and that their future is already mapped out by somebody that is bigger than them. And most of all, first, as we get unconditional love from our Father, let us just pour out unconditional love to the children that are in their home, because that love, it is powerful, it is healing, and it is redemptive. Thank you so much for watching. Again, I encourage you to subscribe to catch that next video that's coming out next week. And thank you so much for joining me. Remember, go out, live bold, and be brave.